files 20-count charge against suspended Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele.
It is an opportunity to expand, to explore and to expand bilateral relations.
World Expo 2023, Republic of Korea solicits Nigeria's support to host in Busan, Korea.
The driver was contracted to convey paralyzed railway track from Lafia Town to Ilorin.
Arrest the rail track vandals in Nasarawa State.
And on Good Morning Nigeria this Wednesday, we shall focus on stabilizing the Naira.
Okay, so the Naira has been facing serious challenges and also from multiple fronts. Now, over the last 8 years, according to data, government has turned to the Central Bank of Nigeria, that's the CBN, to fund its budget deficit. And the Apex Bank has also had to print about 23 trillion Naira during the said period, disregarding the law limiting the CBN advances to the federal government to 5% of the previous year's revenue.
And in part, the central bank made an attempt to correct the structural damage it had done to the economy when it redesigned the Naira and started mopping up the money in circulation. But its actions perhaps recorded more harm than good, according to some Nigerians and experts.
And what's still is that added to the scarcity of banknotes, it sparked a crisis of reduced confidence in the Naira, with the number of border communities in Nigeria opting to hold transactions in the currency of their neighboring countries, and usually either the CFA francs or as the case may be. Now, the effects may, however, be permanent. The slight sections of Nigeria's trading communities, more than ever before, are finding the CFA francs as an acceptable means of transacting businesses.
Right under our noses, while we were all not paying attention, the unthinkable seems to have happened. The CFA currency used by 8 West African countries, namely Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast, Mali, Niger, Senegal, Togo, Guinea-Bissau, and Benin Republic, is now worth more than the Nigerian Naira. Shockingly, one CFA franc is worth 1.28 Naira.
Incredible there. Even before the inauguration of the Bola Ahmed Tinubu as president, Nigeria's inflation was the highest it had ever been in over a decade. Now, the decision of the president to remove the subsidy on petrol and also float the Naira translated to further hike in prices of goods and services.
And the livelihood of 220 million Nigerians are at stake here. And the good news, however, is that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu appears to understand the magnitude of the problem regarding the management of the Naira and, of course, the CBN issue.
And there are reports also that the president, resisted the option of simply printing more money to fund the fuel subsidy and has ordered a probe of the Apex Bank, that's the CBN. However, the CBN has started introducing foreign exchange intervention measures, as we hear, aimed at clamping down on currency speculators in the foreign exchange markets.
Indeed, Claire, acting governor of the CBN, Fola Shonubi, made this disclosure on Monday at the presidential villa after briefing President Tinubu on what the bank was doing to halt the slide of the Naira. According to him, the volatility of the Naira in the parallel market is not solely driven by economic factors, but also speculative demand.
All right. There are many factors that have affected the downfall or free fall of the Naira, the depreciation of the Naira in the recent past. But what are those proposed intervention measures that can change the developments at the foreign exchange market? That's, of course, both the official and the parallel markets. We ask again, is CBN doing enough to halt the slide of the Naira and once and for all? And what are those factors responsible for the volatility of the Naira in the parallel market? Well, when Nigerians begin to see positive results on measures being implemented by the CBN, and above all, when will inflation revert to single-digit numbers? Now, inflation is 24-point-something%. That's about the highest so far. So these are some of the questions we will be finding answers to on Good Morning Nigeria, because it affects everyone. It affects all facets of our lives, most especially prices of goods and services. So on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall be focusing on how or what can be done to stabilize the Naira. I welcome you to the program. I'm Claire Adilabu Abdurrazak.
Hello, I'm Kirian Umar. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning on the Wednesday's edition of Good Morning Nigeria, broadcast live on the network service of the NTA. As a matter of fact, we are going to be bringing you our usual complementary segments, which include the newspaper review, business segment, foreign news, as well as some sports tidbits. For now, we have Lydia Odije Ochi with the morning news. She is in blue. Good morning and welcome, Lydia.
Royal color.
Good morning, Claire and Kirian. Thank you for joining us for the news. Good morning, Nigerians. And here is the news. The federal government has filed a 20-count charge against the suspended governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele. The fresh 20-count charge has been filed before the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory, Maitama, Abuja. In one of the counts, Godwin Emefiele is being alleged of conferring unlawful advantage on himself during his tenure as governor of the CBN. With the fresh counts before the presiding judge, Justice Nicholas Owebo, Emefiele is expected to be arraigned soon in Abuja. Meanwhile, the federal government has applied to withdraw the firearms charge against the suspended governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, pending before the Federal High Court in Lagos. The case has been adjourned till Thursday, August 17, 2023, to rule on the application. The Republic of Korea is soliciting Nigeria's support to host the World Expo 2023 in Busan, Korea. Delegation of the National Assembly of the Republic of Korea made the appeal when they paid a courtesy visit on the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume.
Korea and Nigeria have everything by way of resources, human and material resources, and technology on your part to work in a complementary manner.
International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, pledges more commitment towards improving agricultural activities in West and Central Africa. Nigeria will be assisted in achieving her food system goals.
IFAD is moving. We are moving from a transactional-based approach to an analytical-based approach with regards to how we analyze and provide disbursement to the project.
Participants at a workshop in Abuja are brainstorming on best practices and ways to manage groundwater and mitigate the effects of climate change in Nigeria.
This envisaged that the implementation of the sub-project will improve knowledge-based management and governance on groundwater resource to support Nigeria in achieving sustainable water security for human settlement as well as build resilience.
The Federal Ministry of Works promised to make a cut-off portion of Bauchi-Gombe Highway will be motorable in the shortest possible time. The rehabilitation work has since begun on that road.
600 to 40 plus 100. Job or whatever that, and it will be solved as soon as possible.
We will make sure we expand the road for it to minimize accidents or any problems on this area.
And now to security. A strategic discussion about security in Niger State is the focus of a meeting between Chief of Air Staff and Governor of Niger State, Umar Bago, at NAF headquarters, following an air crash in Shiroro local government of Niger State.
The Air Force has done so much very well for us as a people. You have supported Niger State in the fight against insurgency and banditry. I want to say, don't be tired.
I want to assure you that the Nigerian Air Force, and indeed the Armed Forces of Nigeria, will remain committed, dedicated.
Meanwhile, the troops of 4 Special Forces Command, Doma, in Nasarawa State have arrested suspected rail track vandals in Kiana local government area of the state. While handing over the suspects to the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, the public relations officer of the command, Major Adekunle Afolashade, said the command will not relent in fighting criminal elements in the state and the country at large.
2003, the driver was contracted to convey paralyzed railway track from Lafia Town to Ilorin, Kwara State, for the sum of 1,600,000 naira only.
The document has been handed over to us, and of course, investigation will go on.
And that's the news for now. The program continues with Claire and Kirian after this break. Stay with us.
Our commitment is to promote the greatest good for the greatest number of our people. On principle, we shall never falter. We will get out of this turbulence. And due to the measures we have taken, Nigeria will be better equipped and able to take advantage of the future that awaits her.
The new Milo 3-in-1 Milky and Creamy is truly milky and contains calcium. No need to add milk for that rich, creamy cup, which helps to nourish and energize your kids. Milo!
Good morning.
My life is a whole lot easier now, even when I'm working from home. I still get everything done.
Workout track.
And faster too. Guys, I'll make my decision and get back to you. I take my meetings uninterrupted. Video call Catherine.
Calling Catherine.
Check in with Bay. No cracks. Go, go, go! Behind you, behind you! And when it's time to bond with my friends across the globe, I connect seamlessly, all thanks to my Airtel router.
Delivery is here.
Thank you. Be like me. Stay connected always with the Airtel home broadband.
Who are you talking to?
It's nothing.
You're talking to me?
No.
Airtel, a reason to imagine.
You clean your teeth every morning, but that fresh breath feeling just doesn't last. The answer? Easy. You keep your teeth strong and healthy and give your mouth long-lasting fresh breath with new Oral-B 2-in-1 toothpaste. It helps strengthen your teeth and gives you long-lasting fresh breath.
So fresh, still fresh, and still fresh.
Stay strong, stay fresh. New Oral-B toothpaste for strong teeth and long-lasting fresh breath.
Discover Lipton's flavorful and balanced taste. We pick fine quality tea leaves from selected tea gardens around the world to give you Lipton Yellow Label's flavorful and balanced taste in every sip.
We are Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC. We are political parties. We are the pathway to political power. IPAC, in line with its core mandate, is carrying out a peer review mechanism for elected political office holders. Performance of the President of Nigeria, state governors, state and National Assembly members will be assessed comparatively. This will trigger healthy competition amongst our elected politicians to deliver dividends of democracy like good roads, good healthcare delivery system, good schools, full employment, security, and so on. This prestigious program will soon be shown live on television stations across Nigeria. IPAC, deepening and consolidating democracy.
Nigeria means a lot to me.
And Nigeria means peaceful cohesion.
My country.
We continue to pray, and then hopefully we will come to understand that unity of purpose, unity of living together.
Our ethnic beliefs and background and culture is our strength.
Ever since the amalgamation period of 1914 to date, about 109 years ago, the people of Nigeria live very peacefully with one another.
I think diversity helps a lot to enhance robust development in Nigeria.
All over the country, you have so many ethnic groups, over 250. That is enough to tell you that this is a blessed country that, that God has kept, together as one indivisible entity.
Welcome back to the program. Good morning, Nigeria is live on the network service of the NTA. Now, as I said earlier in our introduction, Nigeria's headline inflation for the 7th straight month is down. I beg your pardon. We do wish it goes down. It rises to 24.08% in July 2023, and that's from 22.79% in June 2023. Again, that inflation has risen to 24.08% in July from 22.79% in June 2023. And those details were made available yesterday. But let's get all the details from our correspondent, Alika Opanachi Arwa, on Business News.
Headline inflation rates for July 2023 increased to 24.08% from 22.79% recorded in June 2023, representing an increase of 1.29% from the June 2023 headline inflation. Latest data from the National Bureau of Statistics shows that on year-on-year basis, the headline inflation rate was 4.44 percentage points higher compared to the rate recorded in July 2022, which was 19.64%. The data also shows that the increase in the headline index for July 2023 was attributed to an increase in contributions of some items in the basket of foods and services at the divisional level, witnessed in food and non-alcoholic beverages, housing, water, electricity, gas and other fuel, clothing and footwear, transport, household equipment and maintenance, education and health. Food component sub-index for July 2023 increased by 26.98% on a year-on-year basis to 4.97%, points higher relative to the rate recorded in June 2022, which was 22.02%. The rise in food index on a year-on-year basis was caused by increase in prices of oil and fats, bread and cereals, fish, potatoes, yam and other tubers, fruits, meats, vegetable, milk, cheese and eggs. The all-item index for July 2023 on a year-on-year basis was highest in Kogi, Lagos, Ondo, while the states with the slowest rise in headline inflation on a year-on-year basis were Borno, Jigawa, and Sokoto with 20.92%. With business news, Alika Opanachi, Arua.
Many thanks, Alika, for that business package. Next, a review of today's national dailies.
Okay, so today I will rename our newspaper reviewer from Chooks the Boy to Chooks the Man.
Am I beginning to look mature?
No, he made that declaration yesterday, and I agree with him. Chooks the Man.
No problem.
Yeah.
I will live long. That's what it means.
If you like, be a boy.
You've come again.
Hello, Kyrian.
All right, so we have a paper to review this morning. Let me begin with the New Telegraph newspaper. New Telegraph newspaper. All right, article, billboard advert removal, assault on freedom of speech, board appointments, APC, PCC's ex-directors, secretaries, lobby Ganduje. You get the stories on pages 2 and 7 of the New Telegraph. Emefiele, federal government moves to withdraw firearms possession charges, files 20 new ones. That's against Emefiele. It's on page 4. Polls. Edo can't accept a miracle as strategy for winning, as according to Obaseki, governor of that state, says making his deputy visible is not a crime. Get more on that on page 4. NAFDAC, calcium. Calcium carbide ripened fruits carcinogenic can cause kidney, liver, heart failure. That's according to NAFDAC, and that story is on page 28. It's very important because of the fruits that we buy around these days. Now, the lead story on New Telegraph is no plan to reintroduce fuel subsidy, increase pump price. That's according to Tinubu. Says labor strike threat premature. States Nigeria's fuel price one of the lowest in Africa. Vows to address inefficiencies in midstream, downstream sectors. Alleges FX illiquidity caused by Apex Bank's management. Kenya reinstates fuel subsidy for 30 days to curb soaring prices. That's on page 2. Reps propose 3% interest on student loans. Says workers will get survival wage. Unions direct aviation workers to withdraw services over poor wages. On pages 4 and 2 and 5. Council of Ulama, Ilori Emirate, Yoruba speaking, but purely Islamic culture. That's on page 6. According to Oshomole, no quick fix to economy. Says Buhari serviced debts with 96% of nation's income. That's on page 5. Now, Niger coup. U.S. worried over planned treason trial of Bazoum. That's on page 3 and 4. As ECCA support for ECOWAS sanctions on Niger junta excites Tinubu. There's a study carried out at the bottom of the New Telegraph. Playing football may increase risk of Parkinson's disease. That's so pretty. So let me quickly rush Blueprint. It has very much less headlines this morning. Blueprint newspaper from top to bottom. Police arrest most dreaded Benue militia campaign and gun manufacturer. Get more on that on page 5. Students' loan commences from 2023-2024 academic year, says federal government. It's on page 5. In Niger, ECOWAS military chiefs meet on directive to activate troops. It's on page 5. As inflation surges, now to the lead story this morning on Blueprint, as inflation surges to 24.08%, Tinubu NNPCL ruled out further fuel price hike. With 2 riders, NLC strike threat premature, federal government. Small-scale industrialists make case for own refineries. It's on page 8. All right, federal governments, we've read that before, on a measure filing fresh 20 new more charges. Amid rumored defection, Wike visits APC chairman Ganduje. It's on page 5. Stay away from Ilari police. Ulamas warn Ifa worshippers. It's on page 7. Nigeria crude exports to rise as Shell Forcados terminal resumes operations. It's on page 23. Claire.
Okay, so let's take a look at the Punch. 6.9 billion naira procurement fraud. Federal government arraigns MFLA allies on Thursday. The Riders CBN procurement director seeks orders to testify against ex-Apex Bank governor. Suspended CBN governor allegedly bought 100 vehicles through employees. Just a bit below the nameplate, we see the picture stories. It's a sad one there. One dies, others missing as oil rig collapses in Delta. And Niger ambush. Now, this is not Niger Republic. Niger ambush. Tinubu mourns soldiers. NAF vows to pound bandits. Details of that on page 7. And passers-by injured as Kano tricycle riders and traffic officials clash. It's on page 5. Warri Itakpe train derails. NLC suspends operations. You can read of that on page 17. And just above the nameplate, now this is Niger Republic. ECOWAS tightens sanctions. Junta demands part supply. Details on page 2. And EFCC goes after dollar speculators. CBN slashes banks' allocations. And FG may sell stakes in NNPC and 19 other entities. There are also interesting stories in the middle pages. For instance, there's a story trending there on alleged sexual harassment by a lecturer in University of Calabar. There's also a story on Al Makuro's name being submitted to Tinubu for ministerial slot. And in Plateau State, we learned of the bandits' attack on a Plateau school, killing teachers and injuring others. Quite a number of interesting stories right on the inside pages of the Punch. But here is Chukwudi Okodugbaja to review the papers for us.
Thank you, Claire. Quickly, Tinubu petrol price won't go up. Subsidy removal stays. And I say that is conciliatory language. I keep on talking about dialogue as if dialogue is my godfather. Dialogue ends it all on a happy note. So I like the way the president has come out enough. One of the issues Nigerians had was not receiving reassurances from the very top echelon of government in those days. So the president's body language should be commended. He knows how to use communication. Look at what happened when the labor people wanted to go on strike. He called them into Aso Rock immediately. There's no shame in talking to your people. So let's commend that. But more importantly, as you know, welcoming as that may sound, because yesterday the presidential spokesperson, Ajurin Gelali, of course, you know, was very emphatic. You could see the seriousness, you know, with which he read out, you know, that statement that yes, and he said categorically that there will be no increase in the price of petrol. But there are implications, you know, and I hopefully on as we take on the, you know, depreciation of the Naira on the conversation segment of Good Morning Nigeria, we have a number of professors. They will probably, you know, look into that and what it means in terms of economic policies, in terms of what that means on the removal of the subsidy. We see in other countries like Kenya going back, you know, on the subsidy removal and injecting a bit of, you know, small... That is called dialogue again. That's practical dialogue. You're coming back to how we started. You see, when you govern people, it's never a straight journey, particularly when the economy is in the doldrums, the way the Nigerian version is. You swing left, you look at the polity,
they return whatever reaction they have.
But they also have impacts because again, policy somersault. You start a policy and then you withdraw.
Yes.
The policies must be thought out. You must consider impact.
Policies come from human minds. Human minds are not infallible.
And that is why you have...
Move with the times. Sometimes you need to give the people what they want. Not necessarily because it is cost effective. You're looking at social cost. Kenya, for instance, has reintroduced a subsidy for 3 months. That is dialogue. You look at how the people are behaving. It's not about... let's see who throws the other person in the trench.
Being fixated.
You understand? That's how it works.
So are we talking about another item? You know, because
this it doesn't affect him.
We don't have to.
No. He has a jet.
For me,
he's bourgeois.
For me, no. For me, I want to deliberate on that because we've been talking about this oil subsidy and what have you. And what you termed dialogue, fine and good. Is a good approach, no doubt about that. But that of Kenya is not dialogue, please. That of Kenya is a practical reality. I mean, showing people, look, this is, you are feeling this thing, okay? Let me remove part of that pain from you. For 3 months. So it's not a dialogue, it's an action. It's an action. All right, now I'm concerned about reps proposed 3% interest on student loans. My concern here is that Nigerian students have gone through some, I mean, over the years, they never enjoyed anything from government, apart from those who are attending public schools, anyways, who pay little tuition fees and what have you. But if you want to give Nigerian students loan, why interest in it, even if it's 1%? You are trying to assist younger generation of Nigerians to pass through school career, and then graduate into becoming human beings in this country. And you are asking them to pay 3% on the loan that you are going to give them for them to see themselves through education. For me, it's not okay. And again, in trying to still solve the problem of the students and youth generally, youth service that we do in this country is a normal thing. It's like a norm. But what about the value addition to youth service? Some persons will come during service to say, look, we want to take you on some entrepreneur or whatever that it is. But I would have suggested a situation where every youth corper gets like 100,000 Naira every month in an account like he or she will not withdraw until 1 year. So by the time you get out of youth service, you have like 1.2, 1.3 million Naira in your kitty to start any business.
Let me just also wade in here. First, my concern with that is, fine, if the loan is 50,000 Naira and 3% on 50,000 Naira, we know what it is, 1,500 Naira. So, but my concern is, if these are students, what would be the source of loan repayment? And what is the tenure of this loan?
It's all good. You move with the times, no free lunch anymore and all that. Otherwise, in my first year, and into when I became a sophomore, that's a second-year university student, Ambrose Ali, UPN then, gave us 600 Naira bursary. My Yashica camera is still hanging on my wall there. We used to call it portmanteau, the briefcase you roll on the tarmac and all that, became signposts of the big bursary I got. Now, government may not afford all that. But at the end of the day, you are still saying that education and agriculture should not apologize over subsidy because they are at the heart of society.
Exactly.
So it depends on the kind of dialogue again. Don't really mean Mr. Dialogue. Government is having with the students. Do you understand? And what we can afford. Affordability comes into. Let us think together for dear country. But I don't think you can do too much for education and agriculture. I don't think so.
What I grew up understanding about this country with the experience we have over the years, talking to people in power, making them accountable, to the people in all ramifications, I come to understand that we can do everything in this country. We can fund anything. What are you telling me you can't fund it? We can fund education. Because we are funding some big projects. We are funding some big projects. No. But that is true. But some persons, but some persons are cutting away our funds, public funds, individuals. In the last administration, the man in charge of finance got away 82 billion naira. This is a human being, one single person, and that can take care of this. We're talking about.
We are sure of our facts.
No. These are what I'm talking about.
You know,
Kirian is a Marxist. He believes that the
facts are saying.
You say you are a journalist,
yes,
and you don't know the story, and it was not in the air. Was it arguable that the AGF took 82 billion and that you had other projects? So is this not in the news? So why are you telling me facts and facts? But the man left the job. Please. Okay. Let's face facts. So we have money to handle anything we forget. It's just to the political will to do that. We can do anything.
Gentlemen, thank you, Kirian. Thank you, Kirian. You know, Kirian is probably a student of.
Let's face reality.
Reality could be
like Ochobola said.
All right. They don't want me to talk.
No quick fixes to anything. You have to plan properly and implement adequately. That's the only way you can get things fixed, not in a quick form.
Okay, gentlemen, our hearts also go to those that lost their lives in Plateau from attack, and also to Niger from the bandits attack. We pray that the security operatives fish out all those involved in the attack and, of course, take control. But again, just to add before we take our break, states cannot fund everything. That's just the plain truth, because the resources are not enough. Let's go for a short break.
We must all join hands to work hard so that we build a country for our grandchildren.
My hope is that we develop this nation where every citizen is given his due right. There is transparency, honesty, and integrity.
Put the interests of this country first and foremost. Interests of Nigeria is being one nation, one people.
The need, if I mean, to put things right, things that have gone wrong before, to try and put right, for this, for the love of country.
Hey, welcome to the StarTimes 35th anniversary celebration. To say thank you to every StarTimes family for being an integral part of our journey, StarTimes has decided to give you a price slash on decoders. Yes, we are slashing the price of our antenna decoder from 8,900 naira to 7,500 naira, and the dish decoder from 13,300 naira to 9,900 naira. But that's not all. Existing subscribers can recharge for 2 months on their current bouquet and get upgraded to the next higher bouquet. And if you recharge on the classic or super bouquet, you will receive a fantastic reward of extra 15 days of free viewing. You can enjoy our top local and international content. So, what are you waiting for? Quickly, visit any StarTimes outlet around you to recharge or buy your decoder between June 12th to August 31st to enjoy this fabulous offer. Wow! Yay! Let the celebration begin! StarTimes, entertain your family.
Bye, Mom.
He's going to play in this weather? Why did you let him go? He might fall ill.
And if he doesn't go out for practice, how will he win more trophies? To protect our family from illness-causing germs during the rainy season, we use Dettol soap every day.
Dettol with Germ Defense gives you protection. Rainy season brings a lot of germs, and Dettol soap's Germ Defense protects you from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Dettol soap is endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association. Be Dettol sure.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Our boss was like, a decent fashion designer only gets home at midnight.
Midway.
Man like
like Osimhen. Papa just the chop Italian league like Oha.
These are real housewives of Abuja. Those women are fire. What does OJ say again? My relationship with money is alhamdulillah.
Because they wear uniform, you want to treat people anyhow. Imagine this officer. I will clear out one lie. Don't cost. Bruh, come on there. Face no matter. The biggest dragon for Westeros, now is Snow Pikin face am, climb am, right am like Formula 1. Here, catch me.
He found the gold and asked her for just shaking me piece of the pie, and she killed him for it.
Obini, fair women, no.
No one tells a story like we do. Showmax, Africa's original streaming service.
Fellow Nigerians, this period may be hard on us, and there is no doubt that it's tough on us. But I urge you all to look beyond the present temporary pains and aim at the larger picture. All our good and helpful plans are in the works. More importantly, I know that they will work.
All right, thank you for staying with us up to this moment on Good Morning Nigeria. And as a prompt for our conversation, which is on stabilizing the Naira, let's now take a closer look at this background report by Tope Alabi.
Globally, central banks and governments can intervene to help stabilize currency by selling off reserves of foreign currency. Exchange rate stability requires developed domestic production structures, a diversified economy, and a conducive macroeconomic environment. While its application differs from country to country, the benefits of stabilizing the Naira include prevention of overvaluation of the Naira, and these will ultimately make Nigerian goods cheaper in the international market and increase the flow of foreign exchange through exports, as the Naira's value will stabilize while deflating a bloated parallel market, as it will also lead to decrease in the pressure for dollarization. The US dollar has been used as a store of value because of inflation and the fall in the Naira's value. Preference for hard currencies will lessen if the new policy stabilizes the exchange rate. Nigeria allowed the Naira to crash by 36% in June in order to find a convergence for its multiple exchange rates and close the gap between the official rate and that of the parallel market. Foreign exchange users still flock the unofficial market as the spot market battles pressures from an overhang of unmet dollar bills reaching back to the pandemic days. Naira closed at 744 Naira to the greenback on Tuesday on the spot market compared to 935 Naira on the parallel market, according to currency traders. Worried about the rising exchange rate of the Naira to the dollar, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu met with the acting governor of the central bank, Folashodun Shonubi, as he briefed the Nigerian leader on some of the plans to address the challenge, especially what could be done to stabilize the Nigerian currency and how to improve the liquidity in the market, while blaming speculators for the current exchange rate. Will government achieve its desired target of stabilizing the Naira? What are the areas that need focus in the immediate, medium and long term? How will these steps intended by the CBN to address the matter have multiplier effect on micro and macroeconomic variables? How will this impact on the lives of the citizens? Guests will be speaking to these and more questions on the program shortly.
All right, from wherever you're watching, it's time to welcome you once again to Good Morning Nigeria, and you're right on time for us to commence our conversation. Tope Alabi, thank you very much for providing us with that background report. And so, to discuss stabilizing the Naira, we have all our guests from Benin, from Kano, and here in the studio. And I should add, we have all professors, so I have to mind my logic. First of all, Professor Uche Owaleke is right here with us in the studio, and he has many portfolios, but immediate, he's Director, Institute of Capital Market Studies at the Nasarawa State University, Kefi. He was a former Commissioner for Finance in Imo State, and above all, he's a Professor of Finance. Professor Uche Owaleke, it's always a pleasure to have you. We've not been together for a while, so it's a pleasure to see you again.
Good morning, Nigeria.
All right. And also joining us from our Benin studio, another regular professor, Mike Obadan. Professor Mike Obadan, it's also a while. Professor is Professor of Economics. He's Chairman, Goldmark Education Academy, Benin City. He's a non-executive director and member, Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria. And indeed, it is a pleasure to have you with us, Professor Mike Obadan. Thank you for joining us from our Benin studio.
Claire, it's my very great pleasure to be with you. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, Prof. Another professor, Professor Garba Ibrahim Shekhar, Economics Department, Bayero University, Kano. Professor Shekhar, welcome to Good Morning, Nigeria. Welcome to Good Morning, Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Good morning and welcome. Thank you very much for receiving me, and I will be happy to be with you.
And, I may have to remain with you. Let's kickstart this conversation by listening to your analysis, or what would be your analysis of the situation of the Naira at the moment. We understand that even before now, a lot of efforts have been put in place by the Apex Bank, the Central Bank of Nigeria, and by other stakeholders in terms of stabilizing the Naira. There are some mechanics that have been put in place, over time to get that done. But of course, the economic realities of today in Nigeria is a clear indicator that the Naira is sick, if you ask me. So what's your view or your take on the present status of the Naira? Present status of the Naira.
Well, thank you very much. In the first instance, I would like to say Naira is continuously breaking records. Certainly with a sort of deficit of over 25 trillion Naira. And then with the value of Naira hitting 940 something Naira per dollar, I think it is endemic. It's a serious problem in the sense that, first of all, the measures that you said central bank is taking, I think even the measures that make it worse. It was around, a dollar was exchanging for 470 something Naira. And all of a sudden, there was a move by the government to, allow Naira to float. At this time, when the demand for Naira is low and there is high demand for dollar, if you allow the two to interact, certainly Naira will suffer, and certainly we saw what happened just overnight. And then the other thing is this issue of unifying the official and the black market rates. To me, I consider this as government trying to impose an artificial equilibrium, which will never hold because of the acute shortage of dollar. So, sincerely speaking, if we look at the situation on ground, the three issues, the exchange rate, the price, petroleum pump price, as well as the inflation that has hit over 26%, it's like we are putting these three things in a revolving cycle and then being triggered by the exchange rate. Because, this inflation, to a large extent, is affected by the pump price of petrol. People are claiming, in fact, things that are not even related, people will relate it and say, well, it is because price of petrol has gone up. And the price of petrol is temporarily let me say it, temporarily placed at 617 naira. Even though government said they are not going to increase the phone price, but there is no way this particular price must move insofar as the exchange rate continues to fluctuate. Because as it is today, we understand that the landing cost is just about 634 naira per liter. So I don't know how, unless if government is going to reintroduce subsidy, certainly price must go up. So when the pump price goes up, certainly, you know, transportation and other will come about again, and then so you will see prices, inflation continue, you know, skyrocketing again, reaching another record point. And so certainly the issue is how can we address this practically or in real sense? Because all these theories that we are giving, at the end of the day, they don't produce results. The initial thing was to float and let's see the actual value of Naira. So we have now seen in one day, it has changed from 417 to about 600 and something. And now it is reaching 9 something. And in the next 1 or 2 weeks, probably it may exceed 1,000 Naira. And that is not going to tell well on the economy. Certainly, we just have to profile a viable solution. And you see, one other thing again, it is not easy. You know, this devaluation, so let me call it the real name, devaluation, is irreversible. Maybe what we will start talking now is how to stop. Stabilization in this regard simply means how to stop it where it is stopped. Because right from the period of SAP during Babangida to date, you know, the value of Naira has been going down slightly and slightly. It has never reversed. When it reaches a certain point, it will stay for some point, and then it will further depreciate, and so on and so forth. So as we are seeing now, it is about 940 something in the black market. I don't think there will be any policy that will reverse it. Probably the only good policy that we will propose is to have it pegged at a particular point.
Sheikha, thank you. And I like the word you used to describe the state of the Naira at the moment. The fall, the free fall. You said it's endemic. And indeed, I don't know if it is 945 or 955 at the moment at the parallel market. There was a short, you know, a clip that my producer just showed earlier, and I like that. That's exactly what is happening to the Naira. You see the clip where the you know, gentleman was trying to prod the Naira forward, if we can have it, you know, that's exactly what is happening, and it's not a good one for us. And I know Professor Uche Walike, you saw that, but I want to start with you because you're a professor of finance, and to just walk us through the reasons why the Naira has continued on this downward slide, you know, despite all measures.
Thank you so much, Claire. Well, to begin with, the exchange rate is nothing but the price of the Naira relative to the dollar. So what determines exchange rate? Exchange rate is like price. What determines exchange rate? It is demand and supply, fundamentally. So why has the Naira continued this, you know, downward trajectory? Bro, it is simply. You can see that's we're trying to. Oh yes, yes. Okay, oh yes. It's basically because you have. It's a case of a lion. It's like the case of a lion and a sheep. Okay, in a ring, because when you say you're floating the Naira, that is what you're doing.
So okay? Which is the lion? Which is the sheep?
The lion is the dollar, and the sheep is unfortunately is the Naira. So what would you expect? Okay, so basically, why this as I said, downward trajectory is simply because demand is outstripping, you know, supply. Okay. Whether by way of invisibles, education, health, you know, recall, maybe I should also, you know, go back a little in history. In the 80s and 90s, particularly in the 80s, 1 Naira was almost the same as $1. Okay. Today, the story is different. And why is it so? If you go back to those 80s, for example, in 1998, even up to 1998, according to the United Nations Institute of UNESCO Institute of Statistics, it said just 15,000 students Nigerians were studying abroad. Okay, by the year 2010, the number had gone, by over 100,000. Okay, that's talking about education. So between 2010 and 2020, according to CBN data, all right, we had spent over close to $30 billion on, education tourism alone. And in the case of health, it's the same story, about $10 billion. So you now find that
and all that's from the Federal Reserve.
Yes, of course, from your external reserves, basically, of course, will be affected. Okay, so when you have that kind of situation, or you even have a case of massive imports, if you check the import level in, say, the 90s and check what it is today, you would now know why we are in this situation, and that's on the demand side. Okay, on the supply side, again, we are not earning enough. We don't have multiple streams of forex. Crude oil sales is still accounting for over 90% of what we earn by way of forex. Okay, so it is this scenario that has persisted up till today that, in my view, would have influenced probably a gradual approach to handling the issue, as opposed to the dramatic way we applied the issue of unification of exchange rates. Okay, because what has become very clear now, what has become manifest now, is that the manner that it was approached, appears hasty. There is no doubt that unification of exchange rates, has, very sound, justification, sound ground. Okay, the same thing with, you can also argue for subsidy removal. Okay, there were, and up to now, sound justifications for those reforms. But the point is, yes, they were hastily implemented, and that's why the Economist Intelligence Unit,
let me
recall, predicted that the central bank would not sustain it. That within a few months period, they will reverse, and that is what we are beginning to say now.
We will see. We will look at those measures taken, in a short while. Kira.
Okay, yeah. Let's go to Professor Barton there, who actually may have made contributions, to certain policies of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Of course, being a member of the monetary policy. Sir, in the past 8 years, we may have experienced a little financial turmoil, with the Naira, as of course, up and down. Nigeria, perhaps, as a very strong nation, we have always tried to manage the situation. Even when we went down economically and all that, the Central Bank of Nigeria was able to introduce metrics, that led to sustenance of the Naira. But this time around, sir, we're beginning to have a different experience with the Naira. And I'd like you to let us into what you think may have happened to this currency in terms of all the, mechanics of, financial management or monetary management, which, of course, you know very well. Can we know what you know about what led to the dwindling of the Naira to the level it is today, sir?
Thank you very much, Kirian. Let me confess at the beginning that I'm having audio issues here. So if I'm not able to get your question correctly, it's because of the challenge. But I think I heard what you said faintly. Let me say first and foremost that, yes, at the present time, the Naira is highly troubled in the foreign exchange market. And it is very worrisome and requires, whatever measures that need to be put in place to redress the situation. It is not surprising that the Naira has suffered so much in the market at this point in time. The reason is the nature of the strategy adopted. The market approach, the liberalization or deregulation of the foreign exchange market, which did not seem to take adequate cognizance of the structural underpinnings of exchange rate determination, structural underpinnings of the functioning of the foreign exchange market. Analysts had argued, that we should deregulate the foreign exchange market, let the market just fix the price. And I remember that some other analysts, including myself, have also cautioned that under the existing situation of serious imbalance between what is supplied to the foreign exchange market and what is demanded, in the foreign exchange market, that, a free float, as it were, would destroy the Naira. The basic conditions for a free float to lead to much desired outcomes do not seem to be met, at the present time. One, for a free float to function properly, the country must have a robust stock of external reserves, which, can support, the level of the exchange rate that will be desired and acceptable. That means then that the country must have a robust balance of payments position. But that is not the situation at this point in time. That's why I said it is not really surprising. Some analysts had thought that once you deregulate and the free market will determine the exchange rate, that it will settle perhaps at around 600 Naira to the dollar and stabilize at that level. But some of us expressed doubt about that one because of these structural factors which still subsist, in the economy. So, as it were, that the exchange rate has depreciated, to over 900 Naira to the dollar is not surprising. It's a feature of a free float exchange rate system that where the underlying conditions are not met, the exchange rate fluctuates from time to, continuously. Even the exchange rate can change, from minute to minute, day to day, and so on. So the developments in the market at this point in time are not, too surprising. But what then are the drivers of the current situation? Why is the exchange rate not stabilized at an acceptable level, that will not yield deleterious macroeconomic and social implications? The drivers, I will just outline them. One, the nature of the regulation which we have adopted. Secondly, there is the phenomenon of destabilizing speculation going on at this point in time. Because of the floating nature of the exchange rate regime, you find that, speculators, a good number of them have become experts. They seem to understand the foreign exchange market, very well. And so they are busy buying, foreign exchange in the market because the atmosphere is now liberalized. You can easily go and buy when it's available. And then you keep hoping that the exchange rate will depreciate. By buying and keeping, the exchange rate actually depreciates because you reduce supply stock. And so there is still a lot of hoarding going on. Secondly, there's manipulation by the deposit money banks. They are, taking advantage of the freedom to purchase and sell foreign exchange, by economic agents to manipulate, such that you go to the bank, some banks now, and you want, to buy foreign exchange. You will be told that foreign exchange is not available. I was at a bank in Benin City last week. In my presence, somebody who was to receive money from abroad, remittance, was told that, there was no foreign exchange, except if he or she would accept $1, the dollar denomination and so on. But these banks, some people deposit money, rather than sell to the public, they are manipulating and not selling. The demand for foreign exchange has not reduced, which means the expectation of analysts that once the exchange rate is floated and the rate is high, that it will choke off demand, and demand will equal supply. That one has not happened. And so you then find that there is continuous excess demand in the system, against the backdrop of very limited, liquidity. And the external reserve stock that ordinarily should provide a backing for the foreign exchange market and the exchange rate, the external reserve stock is very low as of today, just over 33 billion, US dollars. Compare that stock with the level of foreign exchange reserves, around 2007, 2008, when the country, boasted about 64 billion US dollars. So the external reserve stock had, over time, continuously declined because of various external shocks, particularly the two recessions, global market challenges, COVID-19 and all that. So as it were, the reserve stock is very limited.
All right, Professor.
And
Professor Mike Obadon, thank you very much for giving us those drivers of Naira depreciation. But I would also think that it was for these reasons, Professor Uche Waleke, that certain, I don't want to call them drastic measures, were applied, recently. And one of them you mentioned, the unification of the exchange rates. But you have talked about the impact. Why do you think the timing was wrong?
Yes, the timing. No, I said.
And how did it impact on?
Oh yes, I think the points have been clearly spelled out by Professor Obadon. The fundamentals are still not there. Okay, and he also mentioned, he was talking about one of the drivers of the rising exchange rate today is even the domestic inflation rate we have in the country, because the higher the inflation rate or even inflation expectation, okay, what happens? People will now tend to leave the Naira because the Naira is losing value. Inflation is reducing the purchasing power of the Naira. So what do you do when Naira is, when the exchange rate is rising? You want to buy dollars. So it is also fueling or strengthening the speculative aspect of the demand for dollar, because people are now demanding dollar for speculative purposes, now demanding dollar not for transaction purposes, but even as a store of value, because the Naira is losing value because inflation rate is rising. So the higher the inflation rate...
Permit me.
Yes.
My understanding is the unification of the exchange rates was meant to weaken the rates at the parallel market.
Was meant to, yes, converge the... and
weaken,
narrow the premium, the gap between... Of course, that happened temporarily, but of course, we have seen now that it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable because of the liquidity challenge in the official forex market, because the official forex market is not having enough dollars, and also because of the bottlenecks and restrictions that people face also accessing dollar from the official market. So they are forced to go back the parallel market.
It's a cycle.
Yes, and there's also something he mentioned. You know, he talked about reserves being liquid reserves being 33 billion. But you know, the reality today, based on the recent publication, the recent central bank's financials that have been made public, what we know today is the reserves that we see on the website of the central bank as 33 billion is not actually 33 billion, because part of it, a significant part of those reserves cannot be used by the central bank. They are already tied to loans. You know, taking exposure, we read now 7.5 billion exposure to JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, another 7 billion, by way of currency forward. So those reserves are already encumbered. So what the central bank has at its disposal to defend the Naira is very little. And that's why the banks are even complaining today that the central bank is not intervening enough. But I'm happy that the government is now trying to, do something about it. Government is now recognizing that free floats cannot work. And that's why the acting CBN governor is now saying that the bank would do something. That doing something means the bank would intervene.
We will come back to that.
Yes.
Let's bring in the...
I am getting a little bit confused about some of these explanations. And so many Nigerians will be as well. Some of us are not financial experts. But, we want to see an effect of a good financial management so that Nigerians will benefit from that. Let's go to Professor Sheka once more. You raised a number of issues. That the devaluation of the Naira is irreversible. Now the floating of the Naira, as Professor Owaleke said, is not sustainable. And of course, the government has also discovered that it is not a possibility continuing with that. Now, you also talk about the unification of the official rates and of the parallel market. And for what Professor Owaleke has said now means that we have reverted to what it used to be, because the decision taken earlier on cannot be sustained based on the certain indices that both Professor Obadan and Uche Owaleke, pointed out. I want you to look at what their submissions are to see how you can, deal with some of the points they made. And I want to add this to that. Over the last 8 years, the government of Nigeria has turned to the Central Bank of Nigeria as a source of budget funding. And we also know that in the last couple of years, the Central Bank was at the center of everything, in terms of agriculture, loans, and what have you, and all social palliative measures by government of that administration. And of course, the ripple effect is exactly what we're seeing today. Now, how do we even begin to come out of here, of where we are? Because from all that you have explained, the three of you, our guests, have explained, it does appear that we are like in a log jam. There's no equilibrium yet. Where do we go from here?
Well, actually, as rightly pointed out, the Central Bank of Nigeria is either overburdened, either it imposed on itself a lot of tasks, or probably the government imposed on it, because it's more or less like the central bank, instead of concentrating on monetary policy, they are now putting their hands in fiscal policy measures. Look at the issue of all this agricultural promotion, especially this rice production policy. As you said, now you see, generally, if you look at the points we read, it's all about demand and supply. Demand is rising despite allowing Naira to float and, losing some value. Still demand is there. And particularly, like my presenters have mentioned, this issue of speculation, people demanding dollar as a store of value. Again, like I said also, that this thing is not reversible. This is just follow historical trend, in the sense that right from, if we can just cut the history short from Babangida down to this administration, Naira has been losing value. Exchange rate dollar has been gaining, upper head on Naira. And there was never a time when certain Naira reached certain depreciation in value and then is reversed. So, so that's I'm saying what we may focus now is to talk about how Naira can be stabilized at the current point. If you say you want to reverse it, it's going to be a problem. It may take, in fact, it's not even possible. Now, the demand need to be addressed because if you look at our domestic economy, I am happy that we are with Professor Mike Obadan. This issue of interest rate that central bank monetary policy used to peg, I know now it's about, the MPR is about 18.5%. And banks are giving loans at 30, 32, even more than that to investors. So I don't see how this, can, promote economic growth if we look at the domestic economy, because the cost of capital is high. But I know we are doing that in order to attract foreign capital inflow. Then I think at this point we need to go to the Federal Bureau of Statistics and check very well and see whether this capital inflow is really coming. If it is not coming, then I think the dilemma of high monetary policy rate, which may, we are hoping that, there may be capital inflow at the expense of, the domestic production, which will trigger some interest rate to be a little bit higher. That will be a bit costly for some industries to take loan from banks. And so most of the industries that are moving the economy are medium and small scale industries. And if interest rate reaches 32 and above, most of them will have to fold up. So I think it's a question of addressing the demand. How do we address the demand? There are a number of ways that we can address the demand for this. We look inward, for instance, manufacturers that depend solely on imported raw materials should be encouraged to look inward for their inputs. And then even the domestic users of all these products, most of this thing is based on import of, in fact, sometimes useless items. Central Bank used to list like 42 or 43 items that may not enjoy official rate. But, still, if you look at it, a lot of things that are not helpful, that are useless, are being imported, especially these food items. Why can't we look inward for food items? Let's manage what we have in the country rather than depending on imported, assorted foods or whatever. Now, if you look at it critically, you will see that the one of the policy that is necessary but usually in rhetoric, this issue of diversification. I think last government tried to say, well, let's stop importing rice. If we don't import rice, we spend huge amount of our foreign exchange in funding rice importation. So if we can reach self-sufficiency, then the foreign exchange used importing rice is actually saved. But then, to me, any diversification policy, it simply goes beyond being self-sufficient. We want a particular product or a particular sector that will help the oil sector in generating foreign exchange, which means we have to develop certain sector that will produce and export. So we've started our demonstration with rice. Now look at what is happening. The imported rice up to the inception of this government, it's been before this conflict between Niger and other West African countries. The imported, smuggled rice, not even imported properly, smuggled rice is selling 35,000 Naira. And then the domestically produced rice is selling 35, 34. So this one, this imported one is even, this smuggled one is even difficult to come in. If it is imported, there will be transportation, there will be import duty and whatever. But still, the price is almost the same. So this, our farmers, or probably the policy used in producing this rice does not help better, because you can...
Professor Shekat, thank you. Thank you for taking us into how we can bolster our dollar supply, of course, through, other policy initiatives like the diversification. We will speak in greater detail to that. But I like for Professor Mike Obadan to give us an insight into the magnitude of what we're into. Professor Uche Waleke just told us that the 33 point, some fractions billion in the federal, in the external reserves, it's not exactly what it is, given that some percentage of that has already been tied to other expenditure and all that. So what is left is even far less than what we are seeing on the CBN website. So is it a hopeless situation at this point in time for us?
Thank you, Claire. I'm sorry I didn't get the question at all because of audio issues here.
From what Professor Uche Uwaleke, told us, the CBN website is reading 33 point some fractions billion external reserves, but in reality, that is not what is available in external reserves. A certain percentage of that has been tied to other expenditure, by the CBN. So I just like you to walk us through the magnitude of what we're into. Are we in a hopeless situation?
Well, thank you very much, Claire. Yes, in the area of foreign exchange, the country at the moment is, experiencing very serious difficulties. And that is why in discussing how we go forward, I would like us to bear in mind two things. Number one, what is now clear is that the free float exchange rate system that we are currently operating in the form in which it is being operated has very serious limitations, and that if it is solely relied upon, that the macroeconomic and social implications may be very hard to bear. Number two is that the country as a whole is it's in a period of economic crisis, and a situation whereby the economy is consuming more than its income. And that is one reason why the foreign exchange stock, continues to deplete. And that is also why the country as a whole is accumulating, foreign debt. So the external reserve stock, yes, is just about 33 billion, US dollars, or a little more. And, a part of it, not so much, is sort of encumbered because of the temporary accommodation that the bank sought to, in the past, to even keep the exchange rate stable, at the level in which it was before the free float exchange rate system. And so, yes, the stock is not adequate in relation to the enormous demand for foreign exchange. But that's where what can be done now is important. If we recognize that there is crisis, then, citizens must be prepared, to make sacrifice to be able to weather the storm in the area of, macroeconomic management, in particular, foreign exchange management. And so what I will suggest, to be able to redress the situation, provide a respite to the Naira and the foreign exchange market, there are a number of measures relating to supply management and demand management in relation to foreign exchange. And I would suggest that citizens should be able to, show some patriotism and make sacrifice so that, the economy can weather the storm. So I will just mention some of these things that can provide a respite to the Naira. Some of the measures are of short-term dimension, what can be done immediately in the short term, and others are medium, long-term measures. Number one, I will, request and enjoin the monetary authority to make serious efforts to mobilize, foreign exchange resources, in the foreign exchange market. Intervention at this point in time, serious intervention is indispensable, such that, fairly reasonable quantity of foreign exchange will be available in the foreign exchange market, to meet, at least a large part of the demand, by economic agents and citizens. So central bank should explore all options and possibilities and intervene more, in the market. Then secondly, I would suggest that the bank should also introduce reforms in the foreign currency domiciliary account. This is one reason I'm talking about the need for sacrifice and understanding of the nature of the economic crisis. At present, there is a stock of about 23.7 billion US dollars, in the foreign currency domiciliary account kept by individuals and companies and institutions. But such stock of money is not available to the central bank as part of reserves to support the Naira by way of interventions.
Well, it appears we have lost the signals from Benin. Well, our engineers will ensure we get back Professor Obadan to continue this conversation with us. Now we are back to the studio here. Now he mentioned that the intervention is indispensable or inevitable, and he also talked about mobilizing forces, mobilizing foreign exchange resources, and we don't seem to have a better understanding. Before we go on break, sorry, we are going to have this explained out so I don't miss the line of thought. I'll bring in Uche Owaleke here. He said that it is inevitable that there must be intervention. Now, look at what are these interventions? Yeah. There are reports that the president resisted the option of simply printing more money to fund the fuel subsidy. That's number one. The CBN also has started introducing foreign exchange intervention measures aimed at clamping down on currency speculators in the foreign exchange market. Now, how effective would this be in averting the present crisis? And of course, I should also add, are the parallel marketers the real issue here?
Maybe I should start, from the last one. Unfortunately, the attention, the focus now appears to be on the parallel market. You see, in this conversation, and even when you hear, when you go outside and you also hear people, discussing the Forex, the it seems to be on the parallel market. So the rates you get are parallel market rates. So even the media reports parallel market rates as opposed to the official I&E, which is now known as the Nigerian, foreign exchange market rate at not up to 800 naira. I think 700 and something naira. But the attention is on the parallel market rate, and we have been told over time that this market is even shallow, not up to 10% of the entire, forex market. That tells you that it has a very significant impact on what is happening, and that's why the focus seems to be on the parallel market, because that is where the speculation is happening. As long as you keep having this premium between the official and the market rate, attention will be on the parallel market rate. Now, talking about interventions, that interventions are inevitable, okay? I agree that interventions at this point in time are inevitable, and that's why I said that the central bank cannot sustain the free float, okay? That there is need to revert to the managed float system. Managed float means the central bank should from time to time intervene in the forex market, but there's a limit to what they can do, unfortunately. How they can, the limit to the extent they can intervene because of the level of our reserves, okay? The central bank can only intervene from reserves, can only go, our reserves are stock of foreign currency. Let me also try to break the stock of foreign currency, which is mainly, in dollars. So if you have sufficient reserves, you're in a position to intervene. And that's why, Prof started by saying that for you to have a free, a complete free float, you must have two things. One, a diversified export base, multiple streams of income, and you should also have, huge external reserves. Okay, so you should be, especially when you want to even ensure that it doesn't go beyond in a particular band. So at this point, where we are having serious liquidity challenges in the forex market, central bank should now go and take some of the reserves that it has now to intervene. And as I said earlier on,
but you said the reserve is tied to some
no, part of it. I think about what they have now as net reserves is around $18 billion. Out of the 33 billion, what they have is around $18 billion. Okay, and that, I said if you go to their website, you see 33 point something billion. So that gives a wrong impression of the asset side of the balance of the central bank's balance sheet. Because if you go to central bank's asset side, you should see forex reserves. That's the major asset you find in central bank's balance sheet. On the liability, you see currency in circulation. So when you reflect the liability side correctly and the asset side, you're not reflecting the assets correctly. Because part of what you're reporting as assets should have actually been liabilities because they are already tied. Okay, so that kind of a situation, again, does not send the right signal to investors. Remember, when we unified on the assumption that foreign investors will come. Okay, so now that they are not coming, what I think we should do in the immediate is while we are intervening, okay, luckily for us, oil price is doing well, $90 per barrel. So the government should now ensure that production is ramped up because we're still having challenges with crude oil theft. If you ramp up production and earn more revenue, more forex, you can now pump that and also use that to stabilize, the forex market. So intervention is necessary on the supply side. On the demand side, what do we need to do?
Still on the supply, on the supply side, do you also think that in the immediate, we need to quickly, source for maybe external help to?
Don't go there. I've had these suggestions that we should at this time approach the IMF, for another facility. Yeah. If you check our external debt stock, you will see IMF loans, $3.4 billion. It's still there. We have not paid off, and people are still suggesting at this point in time that we should go and get another IMF loan. Okay, let me tell you, Clay, check the story of Egypt. I did a paper on the Egypt experience, some time ago. In November 2016, Egypt was also cajoled, let me put it that way, to float the Egyptian pound. Egypt floated the Egyptian pound. At that time, the Egyptian pound to the dollar was 8 Egyptian pound to the dollar. At the parallel market in Egypt, it was 17.8 Egyptian pound to the dollar. So the IMF then said, again, float. If you float, you converge rates and remove distortions. Market forces should determine exchange rate. So Egypt floated. Exchange rate actually, converged, okay, both official and exchange, to 17.8. But what is happening today? What happened even a few months after? The thing also widened. But in the case of Egypt, it was supported at that time by an IMF facility. IMF, they were negotiating a $12 billion a program and got $3 billion. So what I'm saying in effect is it doesn't work. Right now, Egypt is still having the same problem, and the same IMF is telling them that it is because they didn't implement the reforms well enough.
Because we're also hearing of that now.
Yes, they are saying you should increase your rates. IMF is saying we should use monetary policy to tackle inflation. In other words, further increase the MPR, okay? And because according to them, if you don't increase rates the investors will not come.
In fact, the fear of IMF is beginning of financial wisdom. Yeah, you're going to do that much later, especially in Africa, where we are producing less than we consume. In fact, we import almost 90% of what we need in this country. So why wouldn't there be demand for foreign exchange? It's all part of it. We're going to go into that when we return from this break. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on NTA Network Service, and we thank you for being with us up to this moment. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, the program continues.
You are going through the brunt of the fuel subsidy. I know the pressure and the demand and lamentation, but you understand it much better. You are the one who understands the labor pain. That is only after that pain you see the smile of a child that you are relieved and forget the pain completely. And that's what we are going through economically. You are the one who can educate better the public to understand that we have to go through this. Cartel and thieves have been raping us and fleecing this country before now. You say enough is enough. We are taking our country back. Yes.
Bye, Mom. He's going to play in this weather? Why did you let him go? He might fall ill.
And if he doesn't go out for practice, how will he win more trophies? To protect our family from illness-causing germs during the rainy season, we use Dettol soap every day.
Dettol with germ defense gives you protection. Raining season brings a lot of germs, and Dettol soap's germ defense protects you from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Dettol soap is endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association. Be Dettol sure.
From humble beginnings to the extraordinary, we've witnessed incredible bonds, the rise of legends in the most challenging of times, and the most unforgettable moments that kept us at the edge of our seat. Everything up till now was just the beginning. Legends go head-to-head as timelines have collapsed for the ultimate showdown. Welcome to Big Brother Niger All-Stars.
Proudly sponsored by Money Point, powering dreams. In association with HFM, online trading at its finest.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Nigeria means unity. Nigeria means freedom to me.
Nigeria means greatness to me.
Nigeria is indivisible. There is nothing you can do. We all have to savage it together and learn to love each other. We are indivisible. As a mother and a leader, I will always preach for peace and unity in this country, because that is the only thing that will give us progress.
Though tribes and tongues may differ, in brotherhood we stand. And it is the woman that does that.
All right, still watching Good Morning Nigeria. Okay, let's bring in Professor Sheka here once more. You've just listened to Professor Uche Uwaleke, and there are some points that he raised that I'd like you to also address. So you are professors in the financial, industry. We talk about remediation now. How will it start? Of course, certain mistakes may have been made in the past, even before the advent of this administration, with respect to the activities of the Central Bank of Nigeria. In fact, the ripple effect of what happened some years ago is what we're seeing today, because what is happening now did not just start. Some suggested to the president to print more Naira to address the issue of fuel subsidy. I want to know your take on that. And many Nigerians are running domiciliary accounts, even those who have no business with importation or any forex business. They just run domiciliary accounts. That this a preference, for the dollar. How is dollarization of this country affect what we're talking about today? I don't know whether it still exists, but we know that some time ago, in this Abuja particularly, some schools began to accept the dollar as for tuition fees, and in fact other fees. Some landlords were also demanding dollar for payment of house rents and what have you. And in fact, ministers, CEOs of federal government agencies and even state agencies, they like to spend dollar more than the Naira. They don't even touch Naira anymore. They spend dollars and all of that. So that preference, could it have also contributed to what we're talking about today? Of course, you also add your own remediation measures, if you like, as a professional.
So I hope I get your question right, because it has been slightly breaking. But yes, the issue of dollarization, I think that is a crime. And anybody that insists on accepting Naira, accepting dollar in Nigeria, I think that person should be arrested, because dollar is not a legal tender in Nigeria. And then pertaining to the issue of, preparing a way out. Well, actually, first, I think, like you mentioned, this issue of domiciliary account, the government or the central bank has to address this issue of speculators. People are demanding dollar just for the sake of, storing value or buying and selling at the future time when the price, when Naira depreciates. So I think that should be discouraged also. And to me, the central bank should be able to source foreign exchange. They should, because it is their own responsibility. But then after sourcing, I know they cannot meet the demand. The demand is growing. Just like Professor Uche has mentioned about the issue, a number of students going abroad, number of Nigerians traveling abroad for medication, and so on. But I think whatever effort they could make, the next thing is to be able to ration this foreign exchange. I think that is very important as a short-term measure. Since it is not enough, demand does not equal supply. So demand is higher, then consumers, buyers of foreign exchange should be rationed. Government should find a way of determining genuine users and find a way of identifying sectors on order of importance, that import of raw materials or those going on medication, if government feels that is important, or those traveling out for education. I think since it is not sufficient, we should devise a way of rationing, at least for the meantime, so that we can be able to meet the demand that is a bit necessary or essential. And then, well, I've taken the word of the president that they are not going to increase pump price of oil. Now, if this claim is to stand, then certainly Mr. President and the central bank must do something about stabilizing Naira. Otherwise, we are preparing to go into another subsidy regime, because if government said they are not going to increase pump price when the landing cost as it is now is above 630, then there is no miracle except to revert back to subsidy. And I think, again, the other important thing that I want to mention with regards to this issue of subsidy, or the issue of this value of currency, or this thing, I think the central bank should also consider, you know, like I mentioned earlier, their monetary policy rate. They should consider it. If the foreign inflow is not coming, then let us, as we strangle the domestic economy, let us relax it. Let's lower the interest rate, because interest rate of 32% is too much for the economy to grow. And most importantly, as we have already identified that most of the sector that is, promoting economic growth is small, medium scale enterprises. And these are the vulnerable sector that when interest rate is high, most of them cannot cope. So I think with this, we can be able to have some remedy in a bit within a short while.
Thank you. I don't know if I can go to Benin now, but if not, it's Benin, Professor Obadan. I hope you can hear us clearly now. The other period, okay. We'll get back to you, Professor Obadan, but let's come back here to the studio. Professor Uchewalike was giving us measures, of course, to stabilize the Naira and, of course, to ensure reserve preserve our foreign reserves. He had started, with some of the measures. But, Prof, I also like to know if, for instance, on the part of preservation of the external reserves, what kind of measure should be taken, to address the issue of what Professor Obadan described as phenomenon, those propagating the phenomenon of destabilization, deposit money banks who hold, currency, using the freedom to buy and sell and hold currency. What kind of measures should be adopted to deal with that situation, in addition to your other, yes?
Let me just be straight. It is supervision, effective supervision of the banks. And, of course, that will also mean following it up with adequate sanctions. Okay? By the time one or two banks are sanctioned, I'm sure others will,
what kind of sanction? Withdrawal of operating licenses?
Not the central, not necessarily. I'm sure the central bank will have a way of sanctioning them to discourage them from illegal sale of, forex. Okay. Now, having said that, let me also repeat that it will not be in the interest of this economy, the Nigerian economy, for the government to approach the IMF for a facility in order to get out of this situation.
External facility.
Yes, external facility, IMF loan. So I don't think that is what we require, at this point in time. Again, I go back to the case of Egypt. Egypt is still reeling from that, crisis up till today. Only in December last year, December 2022, the IMF approved another extended fund facility for Egypt, $3 billion. Okay. Again, of course, these things are come with conditionalities. Also asking them to completely now, liberalize the forex market and also increase, monetary policy rate. So that shouldn't be the route we should consider now. Okay. So I think on the supply side, as I said earlier on, the immediate thing that needs to be done is for the central bank to fall back on the little that it has and see how we can pump liquidity in the forex market, and for us to also take advantage of the rising crude oil price. Oil price is rising, as I mentioned earlier. We need to deal with the crude oil theft to see how much we can ramp up production, such that the more forex we earn from crude oil, we can also pump into the forex market. That is critical. Now, on the demand side, it's important to also reduce pressure. Okay, is identify those major items that are even gulping this forex. One of them is fuel imports. What we spend importing fuel. So if whatever we are doing should be part of a program, if the government, just as we have been told, will ensure that the Port Harcourt refinery, for example, becomes functional by November, December, okay, that will reduce the level of demand for forex to be able to import fuel. So fixing the refineries, that is very key. And also encouraging our companies in Nigeria to, backwardly integrate, okay, to source their raw materials locally, as opposed to importing these raw materials. If it means giving them incentives, yes, give them incentives to ensure that they source materials locally. Look at what happened recently. Because of this unification of exchange rates, many companies reported huge forex losses. Nestle, Guinness, Nigerian Breweries, MTN, Airtel, you know, and the likes, all reported huge forex losses. And some of them, even one of them on account of forex crisis, you know, exited the country. I'm talking about, you know, GSK. So yeah, it's important to, you know, encourage companies to do backward integration. It's important to also ensure refineries, you know, are working. Of course, in the medium to long term, the solution remains diversifying the export base of the country so that we can earn, you know, we can have multiple streams of, forex. So for me, that is the way forward, because the central bank does not print dollar. Okay, so it's only when we earn this dollar, when we have something to exchange, give to the rest of the world, to now get dollar, that we can be, you know, we can stabilize the, you know, forex market.
What I'll say,
so in the let me also mention this point. The IMF, the same IMF, is also telling us that we should readmit the 42, 43 items that were shut out from the forex market into the, you know, in the official window. Okay, by the time you do that, you also put more pressure on the demand side. So on the demand side, the central bank should continue to apply, you know, 1 or 2 administrative measures by controlling the demand, and on the supply side, as I said earlier on, yeah, you know, there's very little.
Yes, Prof,
in the central bank.
There is certainly inequilibrium in terms of international trade, you know, between Nigeria and any other country across the globe. We are exporting less and importing much more. It's a simple economic arithmetic. If you ask, and many others who may have that elementary understanding. If you are not exporting and you are relying on importation, then you are, of course, the demand for forex will be very high. And you talked about pumping liquidity into the forex market. Just simplify it, putting more money inside. That's what it means. So I'm talking about the printing more money, and people say you're not printing, not printing the money. We should, okay.
With respect to the oil subsidy thing,
exactly.
I want to agree with those who say that in the meantime, in the interim, okay, this is the time that ways and means can be justified.
Okay.
Yes, the central bank can use ways and means now to support whatever palliatives. You know,
I was trying to go to Michael Badan to round off. I don't know whether we still have him. No, okay, we don't have him anymore. And we just have 1 minute to go. Professor Sheka, your last or your final words on this conversation. If you're the central bank governor, what will you be doing?
Well, actually, I think my co-presenters have already made valuable points. What imposes this serious problem on the foreign exchange is the issue of oil importation. And if refineries can be put to work, certainly the pressure will be reduced. And with regards to the ability of central bank to fetch more foreign exchange, well, certainly, like we also have mentioned, there's a long-term and short-term issue. The long-term is to diversify the economy, but unfortunately, this diversification right from, in fact, we can say right from Obasanjo when he was a military administrator, when we did Operation Feed the Nation, that was the beginning of diversification. To date, it's like either we don't want to diversify the economy or we are not interested in diversifying. But certainly, that is the only solution. Dollar, I mean, depending on oil as a source of dollar, is not going to be possible anymore. So we have to certainly diversify the economy, but not the way we want to do it through like this rice production, which ruin the economy by siphoning money, which at the end, I mean, the central bank cannot even identify those who use the money.
Professor Garba Ibrahim Sheikha, thank you very much for the points that you have raised. And we will just leave our conversation at this. Our time is up. Let me once again appreciate you for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria today, all the way from our Kano studios. And Professor Michael Badan, Professor of Economics, Chairman, Goldmark Education Academy, Benin City. We also appreciate your contribution. Thank you very much for joining us. And from our studios here in Abuja, Professor Uche Uwaleke, who is, of course, Director, Institute of Capital Market Studies, Nassarawa University. Thank you very much, Professor Uche Uwaleke. And in sports, the Maltese will be meeting the Lionesses of England in a very crucial semis at the ongoing Women's World Cup.
Well, and that's a Good Morning Nigeria for today. We hope you have enjoyed the show as we have loved presenting it to you. My name is Kirian Umayo. I will see you again. Have a great day.
All right, and as the women do it in Australia, we wish the better team all the best of luck in their semi-finals. From all of us here, GMN crew, we wish you a very pleasant day and we'll see you back here tomorrow. I am Claire Adilabu Abdurrazak. Bye-bye.